presentation of To the Best of My Knowledge on WPSU is made possible in part by support from the Penn State Alumni Association, informing, involving, and inspiring Penn State alumni and students through its publications, programs, and events. On the web at alumni.psu.edu. And from the members of WPSU.
From the studios of Penn State Public Broadcasting, this is To the Best of My Knowledge. Good evening, I'm Graham Spanier, and our topic tonight is diabetes. More than 23 million Americans are living with diabetes, which is associated with an increased risk for a number of serious, sometimes life-threatening complications. How did this disease become a global epidemic? What can individuals do to help prevent diabetes? How should persons with diabetes manage their condition? We'll answer these questions and take your phone calls at 1-800-543-8242. You can also reach us at response@psu.edu. And now let's meet our guests. Dr. Robert Gabbay is Executive Director of the Penn State Hershey Institute for Diabetes and Obesity. And Lynn Parker Cleese is a registered dietitian and diabetes educator with Penn State's College of Health and Human Development. Thank you both for joining us tonight. Glad to have you with us. Dr. Gabbay, what does it mean that there is a diabetes epidemic in our society?
Well, the number of people having diabetes is literally exploding. Just in the last decade, the number of people with diabetes has doubled. And another scary statistic is that if we don't do anything to change what's happening, 1 out of 3 babies born today will develop diabetes in their lifetime. 1/3 of them.
I'm not sure there are that many medical phenomena that have doubled in a period of 10 years. How do you explain it?
Well, you know, unfortunately, one of the things that's really been fueling this is the increase in obesity and overweight in our society, and that very much parallels and fuels the diabetes epidemic. And so it's really the causes of obesity in our society, which are a variety of different things. Changes in our physical activity over the years that are dramatically different, and our diet is dramatically different, particularly our portion sizes from 10, 20, and years ago.
Now, I'm sure in the course of our program tonight, we're going to get a lot of calls from people who are worried that they're going to get diabetes or have it already and want to know how to management. But could you just give us, to start out with, 2 or 3 things that people can do who don't yet have diabetes, who might be worried about it because of their family histories? 2 or 3 things they can pay attention to stave this possibility off?
Several things that they could do. One would be to pay close attention to their weight, try to manage their weight as close to whatever their desirable body weight could be. Watch their waist circumference as well, if they can exercise or lose weight so that they have a smaller waist circumference. And then as far as practical suggestions, one would be increase vegetable intake, so it takes up about half of your plate. Exercise more, whatever that means for you. 5 minutes a day if you've never exercised. If you can get up to 30 minutes or even an hour a day, that's going to make a huge difference in your risk factors, because we just don't move as much as we used to. And finally, what Dr. Gabbay, what Bob said, pay attention to portion sizes. They're huge. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, and plates 30, 40 years ago were 7-inch plates, and now they're 10, 14-inch plates. So reduce your portion sizes.
I think there are a lot of people out there who think it's all about eating sugar or sweets, but from what you're saying, it's broader than that. It's not just about your dessert intake.
No, actually, that is an old idea that my whole profession and the medical profession really perpetuated back when we probably didn't understand the disease as well as we do today. And certainly sugar plays a role, because if you're eating huge portions of discretionary calories, you're likely to gain weight. But it is much broader than that.
So what is it in our biology and in our physiology that brings this on?
Well, it's a good question. You know, there probably was an evolutionary advantage way back when, because, you know, if you think about it, through most of humankind, food was scarce. And the ability to store food and be able to survive when food wasn't around was a major of major importance. It's really just the last century where food has become very abundant, and those same people that had that advantage of being able to store food effectively in the form of fat are now penalized for that in a sense, because they eat more and they store more.
I'm sure we have some people listening and watching to this show tonight who have diabetes or are familiar with it, but others, we might stir their curiosity, and it might prompt them to go to the doctor or on their next visit to ask their doctor about it. What should they ask their doctor, and what would a doctor do to give them a test to find out what zone they're in?
Well, the nice thing about diabetes is it's very simple to diagnose. It's really not mysterious. It's a blood test that you have done fasting that measures your blood sugar. And if it's above a certain number, we know that you have diabetes. Above a 126 or higher, you have diabetes. And now we've defined a group of people that are at risk for diabetes, which we call prediabetes. And they're 100 to 125. If their fasting blood sugar is 100 to 125, they have prediabetes, and we know those people are at risk for having diabetes. And those are the people that really can work to prevent it.
Prediabetes, does it basically mean they're just very close to the cutoff point, or are there some other indications other than the blood test?
Well, that's the main thing. It helps to predict who's at highest risk for developing diabetes, and it's been helpful to be able to then look at those people and look at what kinds of interventions can you do to prevent diabetes. And they've actually done a very effective lifestyle intervention where people walked 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and they reduced their body weight by 7%. And that was enough to drop the number of people that developed diabetes by 2/3. So it was very effective.
There's lots to talk about here tonight as we explore the topic of diabetes, but we're going to open up the phone lines right now and take our first caller. It's Evelyn, who's calling from Phillipsburg. Hello, Evelyn, you're on the air.
Hello, thank you very much for taking my call. I'm concerned about
Evelyn?
Portion size. Yes.
Okay, I don't think we have Evelyn with us. After all,
Yes,
she
I'm
might
here.
call back in and we'll get her reconnected.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
When does a person reach you in the process? When do they come to you, and what's your role in dealing with someone who has diabetes?
Hopefully early in the process. Ideally, when they're in the prediabetes phase, it would be ideal if we saw them then. Unfortunately, a lot of the insurance companies at this time don't cover prediabetes. So that until you've developed diabetes, you can't get in necessarily to see a dietitian. But that would be the most effective because we can prevent it. But at any point in the disease almost, coming to see a registered dietitian or a diabetes educator is going to make a difference in their long-term care.
I think we're going to try Evelyn one more time, or is it Ron from Johnstown on the line? Hello.
Hi, Mr. Spanier. How are you?
Okay, I guess we're having a little trouble with our phone lines, but that's okay. They'll get that fixed. In the meantime, we've got a lot to talk about. Now, there are some people, I'm sure, who understand that their condition has come about through a lifestyle situation. You mentioned, the excessive weight, the waistline, the food consumption. And then there are some folks who just have it through no fault of their own. Could you explain the difference and how you make a determination about one versus another?
Well, there are two main types of diabetes, and they're called pretty simply type 1 and type 2. And most people have type 2 diabetes, and that's the type of diabetes that is related to weight. and obesity. And so the more obese someone is, the more at risk they are to develop that type of diabetes. The other kind of diabetes, type 1, really has nothing to do with weight. It's an autoimmune disease. The body creates an immune reaction to the cells that make insulin, and they basically get killed off, and as a result the person requires insulin therapy lifelong, and they don't have any control over that autoimmune process. It's a completely different development of the disease. So those people, you know, really don't need to worry about losing weight, but there's certainly a lot of lifestyle things that they can do that are helpful as well.
And is type 1 or type 2 correlated directly or loosely with children who develop diabetes?
Well, you know, it used to be that they were actually used to have names of juvenile onset and adult onset because one tended to be with children and the other not. Now that's really changing. So typically the younger folks were the ones that were developing this autoimmune type of diabetes, type 1. But the scary thing that's happening now is that there are a lot of overweight children that are developing type 2 diabetes, and that's something that, you know, 10, 20 years ago would have been a case report in a medical journal because it was quite unusual. Now, unfortunately, in certain populations, it's become very common.
Can you give us some data on the portion of people, the proportion of people who are able, if they see someone like you, to get this under control and manage it versus those who just have more complications and can't really get on top of it?
I mean, obviously, if they have an underlying depression or some other medical condition, they may not make changes. But anyone that wants to make those changes, that comes to see a dietitian, finds that they have success with that. And certainly in the studies that have been done that Bob was referring to, it made a huge difference. So much so that it could be very easily documented that these people had reversed or decreased their risk factors. So I find that I have a lot of success working with people. It's sort of like being a coach or a mentor to someone. People think if they come to see a dietitian, they're going to be seeing the food police. That's not the way it is. I mean, really, any person that wants help can be helped. And
so everybody can be helped to some extent.
Absolutely.
By coming to see a dietitian.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very valuable.
Yeah. What are the other complications that come from diabetes? What else, when it gets bad, what else happens?
Well, unfortunately, it affects almost all the organs of the body, and the ones that are the most common and you know, most dangerous is diabetes is the leading cause of kidney failure and the need for dialysis. It's the leading cause for non-traumatic amputations. It's the leading cause of blindness, and it increases the risk of heart disease 2 to 4-fold. So those are all the complications. I think the good news is that we now know how to prevent most of that. And that's been, you know, the biomedical research over the last, you know, 20, 30 years has identified effective treatments that can prevent that. The challenge for our society is that not everybody reaches those goals that they need to in order to prevent these complications. So complications continue to develop.
Before we went on the air, we were talking just a little bit about gastric bypass surgery. And that was not on my radar screen at all, that tied in any way to this. Can you tell our viewers a little about that?
Sure. Well, it's a surgical procedure whereby part of the intestinal tract is bypassed, and so one absorbs less nutrients, less food is absorbed, but also the stomach is smaller, so you can't eat as much, and people lose dramatic amounts of weight. And one of the interesting things about it is that diabetes gets better right away, even before there's that much weight loss. So it seems to be working in a way beyond just weight loss. It's somehow changing some of the hormones in the body in a way that really is very helpful for diabetes. And it's typically the kind of procedure that we recommend for people that are very much overweight. We measure that with a body mass index, and higher than 35 with diabetes would be the type of person one would think about for this kind of surgery.
Okay, so I'm sure there are people listening who are thinking, you know, I've heard about that procedure, I've thought about it. Am I big enough or heavy enough to reach that cutoff number of 35? Now, there are formulas for measuring it, but could you give some general sense of how overweight someone would be to be in that zone?
You know, it's a little bit hard to sort of for me to give you a specific example, and as you say, there are tables on the web and things like that that'll sort of help define that. But it's more than a little bit overweight. We're generally talking people that are, you know, 50 pounds or more above where they want to be. Where would be best for them. The other interesting part about diabetes is that you don't have to get to ideal body weight to have the benefit. So people who are significantly overweight think, well, I'm never going to get back to where I was in high school, for example. The good news is you don't have to. If you lose 5 or 10% of your weight, the bulk of the benefit for the diabetes occurs with that small amount of weight loss.
So then the way the gastric bypass surgery relates to diabetes is it is simply a surgical intervention that helps you lose a lot of weight in a more modest period of time. And by virtue of that weight loss, you are now at much lesser risk of the complications of diabetes.
But it goes beyond the weight loss.
Okay.
There's the hormonal change that happens, which they're still studying exactly what is happening, but there seems to be some change that happens at the bottom of the stomach when it's cut and when the surgery takes place that changes the hormones within your body so that you actually lose the diabetes early on before the weight loss. So it's not strictly the weight loss.
So it's weight loss and this added, somewhat mysterious piece that is this change in hormones. So it works even better than you would have guessed just from the amount of weight loss that people have.
Well, we discovered that there's a bit of a technical problem in actually getting our viewers and listeners on the air, but we don't want to discourage you from calling us because someone is still there to take your questions, and they're just going to give the questions to me.
Okay.
And Ron, who's calling from Johnstown, was asking specifically about what can I eat? What is healthy? He's a type 2 diabetic, and he's looking for you know, nutritional information. You mentioned vegetables earlier. Get half of your plate full of vegetables. What else?
Ron, if you would really focus on food groups and foods that are not processed. Stay away from things that come all mixed up in a package that are very quick to fix. Look for unprocessed whole grain foods, lean meats, eat fish 2-3 times a week, some fruit, and dairy products or supplements if you're not getting calcium and vitamin D. And basically go back to the mypyramid.gov website, type in your height, your weight, your age, and that's going to give you some good ideas on what to eat.
Now, Evelyn, who was calling from Phillipsburg, is asking for a little more information about portion sizes. You've talked about bringing portion sizes down, but somebody out there in Phillipsburg, you know, cooking dinner each night, well, what do you have in mind for a portion size?
So if you're looking at starting with your protein, look for a deck of cards size portion of meat, fish, chicken, pork, whatever you're putting on your plate. If you can have a few meatless meals a week, that's even wonderful. When I talk about half a plate of vegetables, don't measure that at all. Just eat vegetables. What we do in our family is we'll have a salad plus a cooked vegetable, or we'll have 2 cooked vegetables on our plate. It could be a vegetable soup if it's the winter time and you want something warm. As far as your starch, look for about a half cup or a cup of starch at a meal. When I say starch, I'm referring to whole grains such as whole grain brown rice, whole grain pasta, potatoes, peas, corn, anything of that nature. If it fits in a cup, that's about a starch serving. Glass of milk and a piece of fruit. And then if you're having dessert, try to have a small dessert or split it with another person.
Okay, we're going to give it another try now, see if we've got the technical problem conquered. And I think we have Diane calling from St. Mary's. Diane, are you with us on the air there?
Yes, I am.
We're glad to have you. What is your question?
I had heard recently that there was a study about vitamin D and the deficiency of vitamin D, that they believe now that there is a link of the vitamin D deficiency with diabetes and or cancer. Do you know anything about the update of that study?
Vitamin D. I think you both have that knowing look in your eyes.
Yeah, I feel like a vitamin D nut right now. There's a great website. It's the Vitamin D Council. It has a lot of the information on vitamin D. It's really exciting research. Vitamin D works as a hormone in our body. We have receptors on every cell of our body. And if you live in Pennsylvania, New York, Canada, anywhere, it's very likely you're D deficient. In fact, they've done studies in Florida, and because we spent the last 20 years or more telling people to stay out of the sun and wear sunscreen, almost many people are D deficient.
But you know, I pick up the newspaper every week and learn there's another vitamin I'm likely deficient in. And you got people taking mass doses of different kinds of vitamins. And sometimes I wonder, can you take that too far, or are vitamins just good for you?
Well, vitamin D is different because there are very few food sources of it. Mostly we are supposed to get it by going out in the sun. If we went out in the sun for 15 minutes a day without sunscreen, we would get it. But we have a winter where we can't get vitamin D. So when you get a supplement, at least in the stores right now, it's D3, and it's measured in IUs, international units. And in your multivitamin, you'll get about 400. Most people that I would talk with would say that most people in central Pennsylvania need about 800 or 1,000, somewhere like that a day. So if we were drinking our 3 cups of milk a day, we'd be much closer. If we were eating our fatty fishes, we would be much closer. We don't do that.
Yeah, so, guilty as charged. If you're just joining us, I'm Graham Spanier, president of Penn State, and this is To the Best of My Knowledge on WPSU, Penn State Public Broadcasting, and the Pennsylvania Cable Network. Our topic tonight is diabetes, with guest Robert Gabbay, executive director of Penn State's Hershey Institute for Diabetes and Obesity, and Lynn Parker Cleese, a registered dietitian and diabetes educator from Penn State's College of Health and Human Development. You can join the conversation by calling us at 1-800-543-8242 or email us at response@psu.edu. Now let's take a call from Alyssa, who's calling from State College. Good evening, Alyssa.
Hi.
Hi.
My question was, I'm 12 years old and I've had diabetes since I was 3. And I was wondering, now that I'm out with my friends, I really haven't been able to remember to check my sugar. Do you know how I could remember?
Tell me how old again you are, Alyssa?
12.
12.
Great. Well, that's a great question, Alyssa. I think it's something that a lot of people have trouble remembering to check their blood sugars. As you know, checking your blood sugar is a way to know, in part, how you're doing, and also what medication you need in terms of. I'm guessing that you might be on insulin therapy. People use lots of different ways of remembering. Sometimes it can be having a friend or a parent or someone like that reminding you. There have been actually some interesting studies where they've started to take advantage of the fact that a lot of people are getting cell phones, and that may be something that you have someday, and you can set a little alarm to remind you. That can be another tool. You know, the best answers are the ones that you come up with yourself. We often, as healthcare providers, like to say, do this, do that, and do this, and it's got to be something that's going to fit with the way you live. So it's talking with your doctor a little bit and saying, I'm struggling with this issue, and I can't always remember. What do you think is a good idea, and then letting them get to know the way your life works and figure that out.
How often are you supposed to check?
It depends on the person and what point of their disease is. But for many people that have type 1 diabetes that are on insulin therapy, typically it's before each meal and at bedtime is what our usual recommendations are, so 4 times a day.
Yeah. Let's take a call next from Bethlehem. Ron, good evening. You're on the air with us. Thanks for calling.
Hi, good evening. My question is, I'm a type 2 diabetic. My endocrinologist had put me on Lantus, injectable insulin, and now I am noticing weight gain, and I'm not eating any different. As a matter of fact, I'm eating a lot better, more fish, more vegetables, but I'm noticing a weight gain of about, since I've been starting, probably about 15, 20 pounds. I want to find out, is this typical of the injectable insulin, and is there a way to monitor that aside of regular diet and exercise to monitor that kind of weight gain?
Well, you know, weight gain certainly can happen when people initiate insulin therapy. Part of what's happening in the body is that when your blood sugars are really high, the extra sugar basically comes out in the urine. And that's why people often will have excessive urination, excessive thirst. That can be a sign of having diabetes. When you're essentially, for lack of a better term, peeing out calories, peeing out sugar. And people can sometimes lose weight because of that. And now when they start insulin, they're no longer getting rid of those calories. And if they eat the same amount of food, they start storing those calories and can gain weight. So the challenge is really to get back to the things that we were talking about earlier, and Lynn was mentioning about portion size and sort of redouble your efforts there, as well as with physical activity, which is very effective. The good news is we know even if people do gain a little bit of weight when they start insulin, they still do much better in the long run in terms of their risk of problems with their kidneys or eyes or nerves or those types of things. So it still is healthier, even though you may have initially gained a little bit of weight.
Okay. Thanks for your call, Ron. Elaine is calling from Morrisville. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, I wanted to know about yogurt. I have Fit and Active, and I put like Cheerios in them and a lot of fiber, and I have that for breakfast, and I want to know if that was good to eat.
Is this a flavored yogurt? Or
it's strawberry and yogurt and peach yogurt, and it has like aspartame in it or saccharin in it, and I lost a lot of weight by...
I think yogurt's a wonderful food. It's high in calcium. A lot of them are de-supplemented, as we were talking about before, and it has what's called a low glycemic index, so it digests slowly, so it probably keeps you a little more full and wouldn't raise your blood sugars very much. So I think that's a great food to include in your food plan.
Yeah, and you talk about sweet and low, or you know, or that other thing you use for sugar. And they told me what rice milk or whatever it is. Is there a rice sweetener you can take? Brown rice.
Brown rice sweetener, like a brown rice syrup? Is that what you're...
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily any different than sugar or any other food would be that's a sweetener. Now, the other ones you talked about, the artificial sweeteners, the American Diabetes Association feels they're all safe as long as they're used in moderation.
Moderation, that's what it's all about, is moderation.
Absolutely.
But I kind of like eat this yogurt like it's my daily routine.
Well, as long as, yeah, every day is fine. That's okay.
Keep up with that yogurt, Elaine. That sounds you're getting thumbs up on that one. Next, we have Ben on the air with us. Ben, you're from Tarentum.
Tarentum.
Well, where is that?
It's 20 miles northeast of Pittsburgh.
Oh. Okay. Well, thanks for calling in. And what's your question?
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
My question is, I'm being monitored. I take tests regularly. I'm not taking any medication. My last A1C was 6.1, and I have 40% kidney function. What suggestion do you have for me?
So maybe just to explain to the viewers, the A1C is sort of the test that really tells you how you're doing in terms of your diabetes, and we want that number less than 7. That tells you how the blood sugars are doing, and so your blood sugars are doing quite well, Ben, and that's really great. But as you said, your kidney function is still suffered some from perhaps diabetes, and certainly it could be other things as well. You know, as you probably know, when you get to that level of kidney function, one thing that's very important is to have a kidney specialist involved.
I do go to a kidney specialist.
Right. Good, very good. And there are some medications that can slow down the process of the kidneys being damaged, things called ACE inhibitors or ARBs, angiotensin receptor blocking agents, and those are good medications to be on.
I'm on 2 blood pressure medications.
Great, and blood pressure control is very, very important in terms of protecting the kidneys. And then, you know, when you get down to the level of kidney function you have, there's probably some value in watching how much protein you have in your diet. There's some debate on that. It depends how far down you are. But you know, working closely with your kidney specialist and keeping the blood sugars the way they're doing, which you're obviously doing a very good job in that, are important things to do.
And Ben, I'd like to add that from a dietary standpoint, making sure that you're absolutely on a low sodium food plan and having some meatless meals, using the legumes, the things like the soybeans and lentils, that type of food instead of meat on occasion seems to be very protective for the kidneys and could be very helpful for you.
Thanks for your call, Ben, and good luck. He mentioned his kidney function being at 40%. Is 100% normal or something short of that? Yeah,
typically one way of describing it is saying that you have 100% normal and then going down from there.
So 40% sounds challenging.
It's starting to be concerning, exactly. And that's why being involved with a kidney specialist when you're getting down to that point is a good idea. Whereas milder degrees of kidney disease can easily be managed by family doctors.
Now, one of our callers brought up insulin, and people think of the word insulin immediately in conjunction with diabetes, but I'm not sure it's clearly understood what the connection is and how that works. Could one of you explain that to us?
Sure. Well, insulin is the hormone that helps control your blood sugar, and it's the absence of insulin in one way or another that leads to diabetes. Not having enough insulin or the insulin not working well enough. And so for people that have no insulin, the treatment is to give them insulin. And for those people that still make some insulin, we can use often a variety of pills to either help their body make extra insulin or make their body more sensitive to the insulin they have left. What we do know now is for people with type 2 diabetes who traditionally would be managed with pills, we know that ultimately they're going to need insulin therapy also, that the body's ability to make insulin gets worse and worse over time.
Let's take another call now. This one will be from George, who is calling from northern Cambria. Hi, George.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I've been diabetic for the last 5 years. I was on a 40 gram, then I went to a 20, and I had to well, all of us, we're all diabetics. I have a cousin in Florida, and he sent me an article about the hops in beer, a light beer, and a rye whiskey, like a bourbon. It does not have sugar in it. So I've been taking it, like 2 beers a day, or a shot. I mean, it's the truth, and the doctor doesn't believe it. I'm down to 5 grams.
Okay.
You're on some kind of beer diet. George, you're on a beer diet.
No, well, if you have too much, then it drops it too fast.
Sure.
Then I got it down below 60, and I get real sick.
How old are you, George?
I'll be 66.
So this came on in your early 60s.
Yes. And I just wanted to know, is there something in that hops that drops it? I mean, you drink too much now, it drops it too fast, and you feel yourself going.
Lynn, this might be the most challenging question of the evening for you.
Well, certainly from a metabolic standpoint, George, when you're drinking alcohol, the way it is processed is by your liver. And when your liver is processing alcohol, it does not make sugar and put it into the bloodstream. It does not make the glucose and put it into the bloodstream. So I suppose that by drinking that alcohol, what you're doing is cutting off the liver from making sugar for some period of time that seems to be effective for you. And I think you're right. I mean, 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages for a man would be absolutely fine. It also has a very relaxing, and stress management certainly will raise your blood sugars. So certainly from that standpoint, having an alcoholic beverage in the evening probably is helping you to reduce stress and cut out some of this blood sugar. As far as the hops per se, I don't know the answer to that one. I'm sorry.
Yes, I had an article on that hops does bring it down. He sent it to me from Florida, and I was looking around because I know other people that are diabetic, and they've been doing it, and it just drops right down. Like right now, I just checked, it was like 98, and I'm only taking 1 pill a day, 5 grams.
Yeah, one of the things to watch out for is that alcohol, as Lynn said, initially will bring down your blood sugar, but typically the other things that go with the alcohol, the calories and the carbohydrates that are there, a few hours later may bring your affect you differently. So it's probably something that, you know, if it seems to be working for you, we can't, you know, give you specific medical advice to know if that's the right thing to do. But alcohol in moderation does seem to be helpful.
Yeah,
okay, George.
I was 230. I was 238. I'm down to 205, and I know I can't eat white stuff, the white bread and the pasta and stuff like that. I stay away from that. But I know the day I have a pizza or something like that, it goes. Maybe I cannot control it.
Well, good luck with that, George. Chris from Chester, you're on.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm a 54-year-old male, and I was just diagnosed with diabetes maybe about 6 months ago, and my A1C, I believe it's called, was like 7 point something. So I lost like 20 pounds by exercising and diet, and that dropped down to 6.1, I believe. That's a 2-part question. I was wondering if I was still considered diabetic, and I was just recently diagnosed with kidney cancer, and I had to have one of my kidneys removed. So now I only have the one other kidney left. And how will that affect me, and am I still diabetic? Could you answer that for me?
Sure. You know, I think technically we still consider someone who controls their diabetes by making lifestyle changes, which you are really effective at doing, and it shows how effective you can be by changing your lifestyle and losing weight, how that can really help the blood sugar. So clearly that's very helpful, and you're right where you want to be in terms of your diabetes control. We typically say that, yes, you still have diabetes and therefore need to continue to be monitored for potential things that may come up with your diabetes, but you're managing it really, really well. As far as the kidney-related issue, I can't give you sort of specific medical advice, but you know, if you're able to maintain your blood sugars, your cholesterol, and your blood pressure where they need to be, you're really protecting that remaining kidney, and diabetes doesn't necessarily have to affect that remaining kidney at all.
Thanks for your call, Chris. That's a very, very interesting question for us, and we appreciate it. Jason from North Huntington is with us next. Hi, Jason.
Hi. I been diabetic, type 1 diabetic for 11 years, and I became type 1 diabetic after having my thyroid removed, after having thyroid cancer, and all 4 of my parathyroids removed as well. A few weeks after that surgery, I was type 1 diabetic, and I've never been explained to why I became type 1.
It doesn't sound like it's connected to me,
Yeah,
but you're the expert.
Yeah, well, I would say it probably is not connected, but there's a way to maybe connect it, and that's that we know that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. The immune system attacks the body ability to make insulin, and one of the things that can trigger that immune reaction is stress. And certainly one could imagine the stress of the surgery could potentially be a contributing factor, but honestly it's not something we typically see. Usually the type of stress that triggers or may trigger someone developing type 1 diabetes is some sort of infection. So I think it's a little bit hard to make the connection, but obviously the timing, in your mind, it's hard not to think of that connection in some way.
Yes, someone said something at one time about the lack of vitamin D in my body. I take Rocaltrol now to counteract that, and calcium. Is there any link to that in some way?
Not to your, not likely to your development of diabetes, but certainly for other reasons that it's important to maintain your medications in terms of controlling your calcium for your other medical conditions.
Well, thank you, Jason. Let's now talk to Jerry, who's calling from Clarendon. Hi, Jerry.
Hi. My question is, I have been plagued with kidney stones for about the last 5 years, and I'm borderline diabetic. And does one have anything to do with the other?
Typically, there really is not a connection there between having kidney stones and having diabetes. So, no, not a real connection there.
Okay, thank you.
Two callers in a row with something that they're wondering if it gets wrapped in. Now, the parathyroid would control parathyroid hormone, which would control calcium levels.
Exactly
and
right.
So that could lead to kidney stones if you're
yes, if you put the two callers
together,
absolutely
we're too tall. But it's perhaps what happens in our lives generally as we get older, we develop more medical issues, and we sometimes assume that they're wrapped together, but they're on independent tracks, right?
Absolutely. And I think part because diabetes is becoming so common, it's common to have diabetes and something else. And when you have those two things, you think, well, are they connected?
Right. Bill from Johnstown, thanks for calling into our program. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hello, Bill.
My GLY-HB is 6.5, which is, it shows high. I was told to lose 10 pounds and cut down on my sweets. Now, is there any more thing else I would have to do?
Lynn?
Well, Bill, what I was saying earlier is it's a little bit more than just cutting down on sweets. I would look at your beverage consumption. Are you drinking juices or sugared beverages that in large amounts you could cut down on those? Are you getting any regular activity? Could you be getting more activity? Are you eating vegetables that take up about half your plate? Could you eat more of those and maybe less starch? Because it's not just sugar, it would be all of the carbohydrates. How much of those are you eating in a day?
So the bad guys are sugar, starch, carbohydrates,
In excess.
In excess.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just drill down a little bit
Sure.
into the sweets topic, because you said before, no, that's overstated. But you go into a grocery store and there's a whole diabetic section. No sugar. Buy cookies without sugar. Buy chocolates even that don't have sugar. And all around us, we're led to believe that it's about sugar. Yeah. And we even talk about, your sugar levels are too high. And so can you give us just a little more insight into this connection? And if there are some popular myths out there that need to be corrected, let's set the record straight.
Well, if you have type 1 diabetes, sugar is just a side thing. You've lost the ability to make insulin. We're going to give it to you through a shot. And everyone that's type 1 is told almost daily, you shouldn't be eating that. You have type 1 diabetes. But in fact, they shouldn't have any better or worse dietary changes than anyone else in the population. They've just lost the ability to make insulin. So they might be quite thin, and they may need those calories because they're athletic or they're whatever. So that's where they stand. Type 2 diabetes, if it involves overweight or obesity, then we're going to be talking about total carbohydrates. We have to, as well as fats, because we're talking about what in the food system is in excess. And carbohydrates come from plants. They come from all the plant foods as well as milk products. So if you look at fruits, vegetables, dairy, grains, our food plan, when I take a food history from someone, they might be eating 20 servings a day. And the pyramid says 6 to 11. 11 would be someone that's very, very active.
So is it fair to say that sugar is a culprit only to the extent that it contributes a lot of excess calories and that it contributes to weight gain and overall management of your waistline?
That's very fair to say. That's perfect.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You got it.
Yes.
That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
It's the excess weight that comes with sugar, and for some people that might be an easy target because desserts, not only do they have sugar, but they typically have a lot of fat in it too, and there are a lot of calories. They're really calorically dense. So sometimes that may be an easy way to cut your calories, is to cut back on dessert.
Well, and let's talk about portion size. In The Joy of Cooking, which is a fairly standard cookbook, in the 1950s and 60s, that publication, when you made chocolate chip cookies, it made 48 cookies. The exact same recipe makes about 18 to 24. So the cookie sizes have grown.
Oh yeah.
So if you went to tea in
Love
the
those
50s,
big cookies.
exactly. If you went to tea in the 50s and you had 2 cookies that were this size, it probably didn't do that much damage, and you weren't eating them every single day, 3 times a day. Now, everywhere you look.
Right. Claire from Bethlehem, thanks for calling into our program tonight.
You're welcome. Hello?
Hello, Claire. You are on the air.
Okay. My physician, I have a weight problem, and I'm trying, they're suggesting I look into gastric bypass. My physician gave me a kit to read about Symlin, Symlin, which apparently is a drug for diabetes. And he wanted me to look into the possibility of doing this as a way of taking off weight. I hesitate to even do it, but I just wanted to get an idea what you thought about it.
Can you tell us about that medication? Because every couple of years, something presumably comes out that you can take to help with weight gain, and then usually a couple of years later they say, no, nobody can be taking that anymore, it's dangerous. People are looking for that magic pill.
Absolutely, and you know, as you know, there is no magic pill at this point. Simlin is not really a medicine specifically for weight loss. It's almost one of the side things that happens along with it. It's for people that are on insulin therapy already, and it's an injectable medication. But people do lose some weight, and typically the weight loss is 5 to 10%. So that'll give you a realistic expectation of what you might lose by taking this injectable medication. You know, gastric bypass surgery, as we talked about earlier, is typically for people that need to lose even more weight than that. And obviously it's a much more involved procedure and needs to be done by people that really have great expertise. We have a Center of Excellence for Bariatric Surgery at Penn State, and they really do a great job in this process and have excellent outcomes. But you want to shop around to get the best person if you're going to have that kind of surgery done.
We're going to take a couple more calls, but this might be a good time to ask each of you to say a word about what resources are available at Penn State for people who are looking for help in this area and for a very high level of expertise. Maybe you could start and talk about what's at the Hershey Medical Center, and then you could talk about the College of Health and Human Development.
Yeah, well, it's great. There's a lot of stuff going on, and you know, a lot of research going on within the institute. But really, one of our keys is that we're looking to reinvent the way diabetes care occurs, reinvent diabetes care. And essentially that means listening to people with diabetes and finding out from them what they need. So one of the resources we have is we know that information is critically important. And the way that information is presented is really important for people to really be able to absorb that information. So what we did is we designed a patient education tool, a book, that's built after our Penn State football sort of concept. We obviously are doing great, and so it's a playbook. And the playbook gives a series of plays for people to run when they have diabetes. Think of themselves as the quarterback of their team, but they've got lots of other members of the team with them. They have dietitians and diabetes educators, physicians, people that help them with exercise, their family, and it tells them different things to do in different situations. What do I do when my blood sugar is low? What do I do when I exercise? What do I need to do when it comes time to eat? What do I need to focus on? And that's a free resource available on the Penn State Diabetes website.
Do we have resources, your colleagues in Hershey and State College, or are you concentrated one place?
No, we're very much cross-campus, and everything we do is across both campuses.
And how about your organization?
I'm involved very much with the Institute, and we've actually started a support group here in Center County as part of the Institute, sort of a spin-off to, again, reinvent diabetes and try very, very hard to reach out to the population and make some changes.
Great. And we'll get that information on our online resources, which I'll reference at the end of the program. Let's see if we can squeeze in a couple more calls real fast. Julia from Johnstown, you're next.
I have a question. When I exercise, my sugar goes up. And another thing is, if I eat Dreamfield pasta, it's low glycemic index, it keeps your sugar low. But the question I wanted to know is why, when I exercise, does my sugar go up?
That's a great question. When you exercise, sometimes your body perceives it as a stress. And if you think about someone that's a runner before a race, their blood sugars might be high. That's what's happening for you. It's the stress of that activity. Now, I suspect that within the next half hour or hour, it drops back down. So it wouldn't be a matter of you quitting the activity. I think the exercise is good for you. You may want to modify it somewhat, or just as you become more trained, I would expect that high blood sugar to drop.
Linda from Midway, quick question.
Hello.
Hi, Linda.
I have kind of a multifaceted question.
Linda, I'll tell you what, just give us the first part, because I'm not sure we can get it all in the time we have available.
Okay. I have type 2 sugar, okay, and I was wondering, I have psoriasis real bad on my hands and feet. I had gone to a dermatologist for over a year. I got light treatments 3 days a week, and I had different medications, and nothing seemed to be working. I have like cracks and things in my hands and feet, and sometimes I can hardly walk. Is there anything, any help with that other than what I had?
Dr. Gabay, any advice for Linda?
I wish I could help you, Linda. I'm an endocrinologist, and I know more about diabetes. It sounds like your problem is more better addressed by someone with an expert in psoriasis. So I'm sorry that's not my area of expertise.
Well, thanks for your call, Linda. We do appreciate that. Any closing thoughts from either of you? We only have a few moments left. Piece of advice that we haven't covered tonight.
Yeah, I guess the biggest message is to know that if you have diabetes, there's so much you can do to prevent all these potential bad things from happening. You know, the great news is that we know the answers now. We know the treatments that work to prevent blindness, kidney failure, and amputation, and it's really engaging with your healthcare provider and having a serious conversation about what can we do together as a team to help. And so I think there's great hope for people with diabetes now more than ever, and looking into the future, I think we're closer to a cure than ever.
I regret we are out of town. Apologies to the callers in the queue who we didn't get to, but let's thank our guests, Robert Gabay, Executive Director of the Penn State Hershey Institute for Diabetes and Obesity, and Lynn Parker Cleese, a diabetes educator from Penn State's College of Health and Human Development. And thank you for watching. Tonight's program will be stored in an electronic archive that can be accessed through WPSU.org. We hope to see you back here again. Next month, we'll be talking about future energy strategies. To the Best of My Knowledge is a production of Penn State Public Broadcasting. Good night.
Presentation of To the Best of My Knowledge on WPSU is made possible in part by support from the Penn State Alumni Association, informing, involving, and inspiring Penn State alumni and students through its publications, programs, and events. On the web at alumni.psu.edu. And from the members of WPSU.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.